Hello, everybody out there in Internet land. It is myself, Ryan Wolf, and my co-host, Brayton Wilson, and we are joining you for the 11th edition, the 11th episode of the unnamed Sabres Hockey Central podcast. Now, we've got a very fun podcast for you tonight. Before I introduce Brayton, I want to give you guys a little bit of an insight of what we're doing here. Now, there's no really solid news, but as you've learned throughout the past few months, when the general manager of the Buffalo Sabres, Tim Murray, talks, there's always interesting things said, and boy, let me tell you what, we've got some fun stuff for you to talk about, a lot of speculation, and then some more fun stuff from TSN from this afternoon. But before we go any further, I introduce my co-host, Brayton. How are you doing tonight, man?
Oh, doing good, good. I'm excited to talk about some of the stuff that was talked about today.
You're a very good man. You tell me you're excited. You tell me you're excited, and then you don't want to get too far into it because you want to cliffhanger. But before we get going, I do want to mention that on the 27th, so 2 weeks from tomorrow or today when this goes up, because this will be going up Friday morning, 2 weeks from Friday the 13th, we will be having our 2014 Draft Night live over on SabresHockeyCentral.com. There will be a live podcast with myself and Brayton. We will have interactive stuff going on the Facebook page at facebook.com/SabresHockeyCentral. And if you haven't found out by now, our draft night coverage is sponsored by a friend of ours, the guy who created the puck opener. It's Buffalo Bottlecraft. And we'll be giving away, we have a few of those to give away throughout the evening. So if you keep posted on our Facebook page or keep posted on a podcast too, we'll be giving away, like I said, a few of those throughout the evening. Back to the task at hand, though. As we mentioned this afternoon, Tim Murray spoke to WGR 550 in Buffalo, and just so happens that he gave us a few good pieces of hockey stuff to chew on for the next couple of days. Now, the task at hand, the first thing was the Ville Leino buyout. Now, Brayton and I both can tell you, as the day is long, we do believe that one Ville Leino should not be a Buffalo Sabre next season. But the quote from Tim Murray was, quote, "Must still cross the T's and dot the I's and have one more conversation with the owner about it. And as you may know, the buyout period begins 48 hours after the Stanley Cup Final concludes. But if the Stanley Cup Final does not conclude before the 15th, it starts on June 15th. And then the buyout window closes on June 30th. Now, I know what your answer is going to be, Brayton, but I must ask you, is there any chance that Ville Leino is a Buffalo Sabre in the 2014-2015 National Hockey League season?
No. I think that it's a 99.9% chance that he does get bought out. It's a 0.1% chance he remains a Buffalo Sabre. I mean, yeah, Tim Murray knows it. Everybody knows it around here. Ville Leino's, work ethic attitude has not been up to par. He's been probably the worst signing in Buffalo Sabres history, and it's just time to end that chapter in our illustrious Sabres history.
And the funny thing about it, just to go off real quick here, the other name, just throughout the NHL, there's been another name rumored to be bought out, which has kind of been the thing since the buyouts were instituted. Brad Richards, remember him, the infamous butt tweet from years ago. It would be kind of funny that the Sabres fans wanted Brad Richards so bad, but Ville Leino and Brad Richards will most likely be bought out in the same offseason. I find that kind of funny.
Yeah.
Tim Murray went on to say this afternoon that, quote, 2 drafts to rebuild this team. That is the focus, the draft being the draft. Mm-hmm. He also did say the team may be able to acquire more 2014 first-round picks. He's not afraid to take on contracts to hit the cap floor. He said it is, quote, absorbing a contract that another team cannot have on their payroll. Now, normally, Brayton, I would get your context and what you think about this, but for the listener's sake, we will hold off on that one until later in the podcast because that just happens to go with something Bob McKenzie stated this afternoon. Tim Murray did say there was a pretty good consensus on the second overall pick. He does expect Aaron Ekblad to go first to Florida, which, I mean, who doesn't?
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
he did mention, this is an interesting antidote to pass along to you. He says it's either Florida or one of the 4 teams he's heard about that are trying to acquire the first overall pick to get Aaron Ekblad. So
Mm-hmm. Right.
now that doesn't surprise me because from the looks of it, Aaron Ekblad is one hell of a hockey player. Don't get me wrong
Yeah.
about Reinhart and Bennett, but I know Brayton, you've gushed over Ekblad a lot, and he would be nice to come to Buffalo, but hey, the ball doesn't always roll your way.
No. 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 Yeah, Aaron Ekblad would be a great addition to the Sabres defense, but again, you'd have to compensate for Ekblad coming in by probably moving a couple other defensemen. But the focus this draft shouldn't be really on Ekblad, though. I mean, as has been said by a ton of general managers, this draft is actually turning out better than a lot of people are expecting. And Ekblad's right at the top, but I mean, yeah, Bennett can go at the top, Reinhart could go at the top, even Leon Draisaitl has been talked about being the #1 overall pick from the Panthers. Yeah, but if they trade that #1 pick, if Florida does, that would be interesting because I got 2 teams right now that I think are pretty obvious that would either want to get Ekblad or move to the top to get a Bennett or a Reinhart, and I think that's Edmonton or Calgary because Edmonton needs defense badly, and then Calgary would. They could use Ekblad, but certainly they'd try and target Sam Bennett if possible.
Now, the one thing, it's a good transition piece here because Tim Murray did talk today about moving down in the draft. He said that he has spoken to a few general managers, but that no offers have come through. But he did say, if offers were to come from other NHL teams, he would move no further than 7th in the draft. So,
and that's Carolina.
Yes, that certainly narrows down. Now, again, I don't think it's going to happen.
No.
Tim Murray's got the second overall pick in the NHL draft. He's going to get Ekblad, Reinhart, or Bennett. Either way, a good hockey player. And I don't see why he should trade down. I mean, I get it. If someone offers you a good package, you got to at least look into it. But at this point, I mean, I don't know if it's best for business to trade down.
No.
Looking at the next great quote, actually, this is a good one, so make sure you pay attention. The overall philosophy of the Sabres organization is to let the kids develop in the juniors or in the American Hockey League. Tim Murray did say he won't commit to returning the second pick to juniors, but that pick will have to impress in camp. So it certainly is good to hear that Tim Murray is not throwing the kid away already, but hey, if he comes in and blows the wheels off the place or blows the doors off the place, that's the saying I'm looking for. He'll have a shot to stay. I mean, worst case scenario, you give him a 10-game tryout, and if he doesn't respond well, you send him back.
Right. Yeah, and that's what they should have done with Mikhail Grigorenko in the first place, but that was Darcy Gare. We'll forget about that. But
you're bringing back bad memories.
I know. I'm sorry. Bear bad news and everything like that. But yeah, whoever the Sabres draft at #2 or wherever they're drafting, essentially, especially for a couple of guys, like especially Sam Bennett. I think Sam Bennett would be a huge beneficiary of getting another year in the OHL with Kingston. Ekblad, I think he's ready to play if he's available, and even Sam Reinhart might be available to play. But yeah, it's never a bad option to send these guys back, especially if they're 17, 18 years old. Not too many players can just all of a sudden just go from playing juniors and then jumping right to the NHL and have no problems whatsoever transitioning. That's usually something that a first overall pick, or even the second overall pick. But again, this draft, with the players, this draft, what I'm trying to say is that everybody could use an extra year in juniors and benefit from that.
Now, one more thing before I transition. It's almost a perfect transition, this podcast so far. I really like where it's going because I'm listening to what you're saying, and then I look down at the next point, and I'm like, wow, this is like smooth as
I'm
silk.
trying. I'm trying.
The one thing I wanted to say was a year never hurts someone, even no matter how high the pick they are, because you look at what Tampa Bay did with Jonathan Drouin. He goes back to the
Hmm.
QMJHL, he crushes it, and I'm assuming he'll be in Tampa next year, and
Oh, he's got to be in Tampa next
just
year.
got so much more confidence in that kid. And like I said, it's a good transition because speaking of an extra year, Rasmus Ristolainen was brought up.
Hmm.
And Tim Murray said he certainly could be NHL bound. The kid is ready to play in the big leagues. But, quote, would another half season in Rochester benefit him? Absolutely. So, again, that seems like a situation to me where, and maybe Brayton, you read this differently. I see it as if Ristolainen comes in and blows the doors off the place and makes it almost impossible for Tim Murray to send him down to Rochester, he'll stay.
Hmm.
But if they see something in training camp or in preseason, if he's still here, and they go, you know what, he needs to work on this, or that, they'll send him down to Rochester, no problem, because like you've said before, it doesn't a little extra seasoning on a kid when he's in his early 20s could pay off huge in the long run.
Huge, huge, exactly. And uh, I'm very happy that Rasmus Ristolainen decided that it all goes back to last year when it was like, oh well, I'm either going to play in the NHL or I'm going back to Finland. It's a good thing that Rasmus Ristolainen didn't go back to Finland because who knows, he might not be ready for the Sabres this season if he went back to Finland. Um, but going back to the point, yeah, having another half season at least for Rasmus Ristolainen could be huge because maybe during the off season he works on something and he hasn't fully adapted to it in his game in the NHL. So if he goes to the AHL, works on it, then he'll be able to develop and become a better defenseman. I see Rasmus Ristolainen though staying with the Sabres full term next season. I highly doubt he goes back to Rochester to start the year.
And that's the one thing that Tim Murray likes to mention is that when Rasmus Ristolainen was sent down to Rochester, he played, I think, over like something like 34 games in Rochester, and then came back up to Buffalo, and the improvements even then were astounding. I mean, it was
Night and
certainly,
day.
yeah,
It
it
was night and
was
day.
it was certainly very, very, very good to see out of a kid his age. I mean, he's the future of that blue line, and if he's improving, that's good news for the Buffalo Sabres.
Right.
And speaking of the Buffalo Sabres blue line, the giant elephant, the tall elephant in the room, Tyler Myers, was also addressed this afternoon. And I do have to say, just a quick shout out to a friend of the podcast, Matthew Collar, who with Paul Hamilton did this interview, and they did a great job because it seems like every question that has been asked on Twitter this offseason among friends and uh, co-workers or friends, whatever you want, cohorts, whatever the word is, it seemed like they were all asked today. So it was nice to get some answers, some solid answers to some questions that have really dug at our brains. But Tim Murray's quote on Tyler Myers was, quote, Myers is a huge asset, but nobody is too big to be traded. As we get better, he'll get better. So to me, that one sounds like, yeah, we know he's struggling, and we know that he can be better, but when he's playing on this team, what are we supposed to expect?
Hmm. Yeah, and when I first read that quote, the last part was saying because he said that he's certainly up for trade, but then that last part is, well, is he really going to get traded or not though? Because the last part kind of sounded like he's part of this team. Um, yeah, I mean Tyler Myers to me is probably going to be the biggest name that's going to be looked at. One of the biggest names, the biggest name on defense, I should say, that's going to be looked at the NHL draft if he's going to be available. There'll be teams that will look at him. There's a few teams that I am pretty sure will ask about him for defensive help and everything because if he pans out to be what he's expected of, he might be a huge help for a team that needs defensive help or just needs a boost on defense. So there's teams out there that probably in the later rounds of the draft that might want that extra boost in Myers. They might draft a defenseman if they're staying there, but instead of taking a year or two to develop that guy, maybe they trade their pick. Buffalo would get a first rounder for Myers, and Myers would go to that team and just be an immediate help for them.
Well, and that's the funny thing about the quote that Tim Murray had was, he's a huge asset. Okay, so is he untouchable? But then the next line out of his mouth is, but nobody's too big to be traded. So while we understand that he could be, if he rights himself or continues to improve, he could be a key to this rebuild. But if someone offers us a good deal, we're not, we may not say no. The one thing that he did say, and it's the one drum that I've kind of been beating for the past couple months, is that it almost appears as if we all put too much pressure on Tyler Myers and we set our expectations way too high after he won the Calder Trophy. And I believe the last podcast we did, Brayton, I mentioned that, and we both kind of agreed on it. The guy's not going to go out and win the Norris Trophy a year after he wins the Rookie of the Year. I mean, you got to give it some time. You've got to let the kid grow. You've got to let him develop his own game, his own style, all that stuff. And I just know that you give it a couple years, and Tyler Myers will probably develop into a pretty damn good defenseman. But when you're, like we said last time, when you're playing with Jamie McBain and Mike Weber, I mean, what do you expect? Or guys like that, or just like Henrik Tallinder on the end of the line of his career. Right. What do you expect is going to happen? It's going to be bad. I mean, that's just that.
Very, very bad. Very bad. And I mean, Tyler Myers, and when he was playing, I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to the possibility of a Myers-Zadorov pairing. We saw a little bit of it when Zadorov was playing with the Sabres right before he was sent back to London. But, if Myers sticks around, I think that pairing, I mean, Tyler Myers might be a good mentor for Nikita Zadorov, especially for kind of molding his game. But yeah, Tyler Myers still has a lot of growing to do.
And,
who knows?
Exactly. It's all a crapshoot at this point.
Right.
Moving over to free agency now. Speaking about the unrestricted free agents, Matt DiAugustini, Zenon Konopka, John Scott, Henrik Tallinder, I should say. Tim Murray said, quote, "I'm not thinking about them right now. We could revisit in the future, but I don't know." Now, that to me certainly sounds like, whatever. We don't need them.
Yeah.
That's just, I mean, come on. And that's good news to hear, because not many people, if anybody, wanted John Scott on this team next season.
No.
I mean, I guess at this point you look at it and you've got, if Scott's not going to fight because no one will fight him, you've got that guy in Pat Kaleta. Because, I mean, Kaleta's a fourth liner. He'll throw the body. He'll kill penalties. He'll annoy the piss out of a lot of people, judging by last season at least.
Right.
But again, you're going to get to the point where you're going to have 4 or 5 of the same type of guys that you only need one of, which is why, I mean, with Konopka, the suspension certainly doesn't help him.
No.
But with Konopka, with Scott, they're really the same guy. I mean, just one's a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to come, sorry to interrupt you, Brayton, but it's going to come down to your third and fourth line are going to be kids that are fighting for jobs. It's not going to be, this isn't the Blackhawks. This isn't the Kings. Your third and fourth line aren't filled with grinders, and your third and fourth line are filled with guys who are trying to take their third and fourth line time on ice and prove that they deserve more time on ice and they deserve a job.
Right.
I mean, this is a rebuild,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And there's no way Henrik Tallinder's coming back. I mean, I think Henrik Tallinder's on the verge of retiring. He's probably not going to get a contract. He might get a contract offer from somebody, but he's not going to get a contract offer that he had last season, or that he got the last time from the Devils. He's probably going to get something around $1 million, probably, if that.
It could just be a team. It could just be a team looking for veteran help. But at this point, I mean,
right.
the pool is so flooded that maybe someone comes calling, but I'm not sure.
Highly unlikely. I can see Henrik Tilliner going back somewhere like Sweden to play. But yeah, going with John Scott and Zdeněk Konopka, yeah, I mean, moving forward, there's really no place for these guys on this team. They shouldn't have been on this team in the first place. Zdeněk Konopka might help with faceoffs, but other than that, what is he good for? He's
Yeah,
slow and
if the guys weren't hurt, if the injuries weren't so bad last year, they probably never would have picked him off of waivers. Same with Matt DiAugustini, which is,
right.
again, a role player at best, and you're playing him on the second line. I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, out of the four unrestricted, Matt DiAugustini is probably the best chance of coming back. I mean,
yeah, and at that, it's probably a minor league deal just to I don't know, do something.
two-way deal.
Yeah, do something at this point. I don't
Yeah.
even know. You get sick of seeing crappy hockey players, and I mean, they're in the NHL, so they're not that bad, but
Right.
I don't want to see Matt DiAugustini playing on the second line next season for the Sabres. That's all I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah.
Moving over to restricted free agency, it does appear as if Luke Adam, Corey Conacher, Tyler Ennis, Marcus Foligno, Matt Hackett, and Chad Ruido will be extended qualifying offers, which I believe needs to happen by June 30th.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't extend a qualifying offer, they become unrestricted free agents. Now, if you're paying attention at home, there is one name I left out. That name is Jamie McBain, a guy who did not thoroughly impress the general manager Tim Murray or the head coach Ted Nolan. And when asked about Jamie McBain, Murray was very non-committal and did say, quote, "No final decision has been made." But you have to remember, qualifying offer for McBain is $1.9 million. And if he's not playing like a $1.9 million defenseman, which, I mean, what is expected of a guy that makes $1.9 million, I don't know. But it's not worth it, it seems like, because McBain is a good defenseman. But again, it seems like kind of the problem the Sabres have had. Like when you look at Andre Sekera, for instance. You take him out of Buffalo's system, you put him in Carolina's system, and he flourishes. I mean, it's just some players don't fit the system, and
Right.
it's on the general manager, Darcy Regier at the time, to determine if this guy is good for the system or not. And apparently, he thought McBain was good for the system, and it appears he was incorrect, at least for this season. So I would certainly would not be shocked if McBain is either traded. I don't think actually, he might be traded, but most likely just not extended a qualifying offer.
Right. And I mean, I remember last trade deadline, when they talked about Jamie McBain, I was thinking, oh, he might be a good fit in Buffalo. I mean, he's got the offensive skill that we could always use. But then when they traded for him for Sekera, it was almost two players just being swapped from team to team. Jamie McBain and Andre Sekera are almost the exact same player. They're good on the offensive side of the puck. They can pass the puck very well. But Jamie McBain, he was just not able to gel well with anybody this year. At the end of the year, it seemed like him and Mike Weber were playing fine. I mean, I guess if you want to call it fine, but whenever I watched them, it was like the Benny Hill theme was running through my head. But yeah, Jamie McBain, I can't see him sticking with the Sabres anymore. I think that he will become an unrestricted free agent once that time comes.
And you think about it, and the Buffalo Sabres have quite a plethora of young defensemen. I'm sure, twist their arm if you have to, I'm sure they could find someone to play Jamie McBain's spot in the blue line. A quick note about the Amerks. I know we don't talk much about the Amerks. We're going to try to change that, but I did want to pass along that Chad Cassidy will remain the coach of the Rochester Americans after getting them to the playoffs last season. As you may remember, Cassidy was an assistant coach for Ron Rolston. Then when Rolston got called up essentially to be the Sabres coach when Lindy Ruff was fired, Chad Cassidy took over for Rolston and has been the coach ever since. And it certainly does appear that he's doing a good job out there in Rochester.
Yeah. I have no problems with Chad Cassidy whatsoever. I think that he's a very good, I think he's a very good minor league coach. I don't know him personally or anything like that, but watching some of the way that the Amerks, when the Sabres had their string of injuries, they're calling up guys. The Amerks started falling behind big time, and you know, Chad Cassidy, he took a Mikhail Grigorenko and you know, kind of brought him back to life, even when he came to Rochester. I mean, the first few weeks that Grigorenko was playing, I mean, he was playing on full cylinders, all cylinders, and everything like that. So I think Cassidy is the right pick to stay in Rochester for now.
As long as he keeps developing players and having
Right.
players NHL ready, I mean, you know, that's really all you ask for.
Yeah, by all means.
Um, Moving on to our final point of the podcast. Bob McKenzie of TSN this afternoon dropped kind of a bombshell, if you will. He said on TSN radio that the Buffalo Sabres were in the market to buy a first-round pick. Now, not knowing context, you ask me, what does it mean to buy a first-round pick? Well, thankfully, Bob McKenzie passed along an example, and I will now share that with you. Say a team trades a player, say he's making $5 million a year on a multi-year deal, and you package that with a first-round pick. In exchange, Buffalo sends you maybe a second-round pick. Now, Buffalo obtains the contract and the first-round pick they're looking for to get to the cap floor and get the extra pick, because the real part of the deal is the first-round pick. And in return, you get a second-round pick and a giant cap hit off your book. Now, the Sabres could keep the guy, as I mentioned, on the roster, on the payroll for the season, or they could use one of their compliance buyouts, because obviously there's two of them, and we expect one of them being used for Ville Leno, so this other one could be used for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And as Bob McKenzie put it, quote, do the financial dirty work to get the first-round pick. He did say that Tim Murray is shopping this idea to any general manager who will listen, and I'm sure even though the salary cap is going up a handful this offseason, or supposed to be at least, I'm sure there is one or two, maybe three general managers out there who have players that they may not want to buy out, but they certainly would like to deal and get off the books.
Right. Well, here's another thing too. There's teams that don't even have a buyout this year because they used two of them last year. So one of them is like Montreal. Let's say that the Sabres acquire, Rene Bourque. Rene Bourque from the Canadiens. He's been the talk of being bought out this season. However, the Canadiens can't buy him out because they bought out Gomez and then they bought out Thomas Cabriolet. The Sabres could bring in Bourque. They could either keep him or they could buy him out, exactly, and get whatever else was in return and keep it.
Just stuff like that. Easy as pie, I guess.
And Rene Bourque is a $3.333 million cap hit, but
how many more years does he have left on his deal?
He has 2, I believe.
Okay, so
2 years.
Even if you bring a guy in like that and either turn him around again or just get rid of him, I mean, or keep him, whatever. I mean, it's going to be a couple years, guys. I mean, it's not going to be, the Sabres aren't going to go out and acquire some massive superstar just to help out another team and then say, well, we're going to win the Stanley Cup next year because, like Tim Murray said, 2 more drafts to rebuild, 2 drafts, including this one, to rebuild this team. And if you buy into it, it won't be as bad. But if you want to sit here and question and say, well, this is wrong, that's wrong, it's obviously you're just going to be angry. I mean, just
right.
Enjoy the ride, my friends.
Yes.
I'm just thinking here. I mean, we're hitting the end of the road in this podcast, as you can tell. I'm running out of gas. At the time of this podcast, it's late at night, so I'm quite tired. But I'm just trying to think here, and I'm once again, it's once the Stanley Cup is over, the new season essentially begins for us. So,
hooray!
Exactly, dude. We're gonna have a lot more coverage. A lot more stuff to talk about the draft, and then right after the draft, we've got free agency, and then shortly after free agency begins, we've got training camp, and then a new season.
Mm-hmm.
So before you know it, it will be snowing again, and we will all be miserable.
Yep.
And you can thank Brayton for that one.
Oh. Oh, what did
Um,
I do? Just because I brought up Darcy Regier earlier
it's
doesn't
your
mean that
fault.
I have to make everything miserable.
Yeah, okay. I'll let you have a pass this time. Um, is there anything else you would like to add to the podcast?
No, all I'll say is just be looking on SabersHockeyCentral.com
Hey, hold
for.
on. I'm cutting you off. I'm cutting you off
Oh,
because I just remembered
you're
because
gonna.
I think I know what you're gonna say. I
I
know what
think
you're gonna say.
yes.
On the week of the draft, ladies and gentlemen,
There we go.
Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday morning, you will be getting draft profiles of the top 3 picks: Ekblad, Reinhardt, and Bennett. Just a nice little write-up. It's got a video of a highlight package and career stats for each player. I'm sure you guys will enjoy that, so keep an eye out for that. And then on Thursday, Brayton will be unveiling his final mock draft the day before the NHL draft. So, like I said, on the week of the 27th, I wish I knew what that Monday was because I am lost at this point. Okay,
Monday,
23rd.
Monday,
I'm sorry.
23rd. Yep.
Not very prepared over here, as you can tell. I do apologize. Monday the 23rd,
10 days
Tuesday,
away.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 23rd, 24th, 25. We will have the draft profiles for you. On the 26th, we'll have the mock draft. On the 27th, we will be doing the draft night coverage sponsored by Buffalo Bottlecraft at the Puck Opener on Twitter. You can also check them out on Facebook too by searching Buffalo Bottlecraft. I got actually I must say here for a second that I did get the bottle openers sent to my residence, and I was able to check them out and actually attempt to use one for one of my tasty adult beverages. And I must say these things are badass. They are one of the coolest things that I have seen, and I see a lot of cool things, I must
I
say.
want one so badly. Those things look so cool.
Well, I'll tell you what. I got them in the mail, and the first thing I said is I have to get a beer to try this, and it's pretty cool. Like I said, Buffalo Bottlecraft, Facebook.com/ Buffalo Bottlecraft, at the Puck Opener on Twitter. Check them out. Help out a local business. The dude's from Buffalo, as you can probably tell by the name. He's just trying to make a simple living here by helping all of us out by combining 2 niche markets, beer and hockey. But like I said, that'll probably start. We haven't secured a time yet to start, but I would think probably 6:30, 6:45-ish. Keep an eye out on the Facebook page, facebook.com/ Hockey Central. As I said, always please check out the website when you can, SabersHockeyCentral.com. New stuff up soon. The gentleman on the other side of the computer is Brayton. His Twitter is at Brayton J. Wilson. And
That's my the
his
other one.
personal account, yes.
Yeah, that's my personal one.
The other one, I believe, is BJ Wilson SHC, right?
Yes, yes. Sorry to
Got it.
complicate things.
Oh, it's okay. I just had to remember. That's why I went with the personal one first.
Right.
If you want to know about Brayton's life, you can follow him personally at Brayton J. Wilson. If you want to know about hockey stuff, follow him at BJ Wilson SHC on the tweets. For myself, Ryan Wolf, at Wolf SHC on Twitter. I'm also starting to lose my voice. So I guess this would be a good time to say goodnight. Thank you for listening. Good afternoon, whatever it is. I always say that. Anything else, Brayton, you want to add?
No, no. I don't think so. I think we'll save some other stuff for another time.
Well, I figured I would let you get another last word because I cut you off last time because you had
Oh,
reminded
yeah.
me to say something. So
That's fine. That's fine. The only thing I'll say is it's interesting that Terry Pagula wants to buy the Buffalo Bills now.
hey, the man has a lot of money, and if he
Mm-hmm.
wants to save Buffalo again, be my guest, buddy, because
Yeah,
that is one of the coolest things. That would be cool. I
I
don't
think
understand.
I think it would be great. I think that Terry Pagula would probably build another stadium, and it would probably be somewhere very close to First Niagara Center, and you can connect kind of both of them together. And who knows? Maybe Buffalo will become one of the lower sports cities in the nation to one of the top ones. Who knows?
A diamond in the rough, I think, is what you're looking for.
Right, exactly.
I mean, Buffalo's making a comeback, but I'll tell you what. Besides the performance of the teams, we're slowly becoming one of the underrated sports cities in the country.
Oh yeah.
Call me biased, I don't give a damn. I'll fight you. But like I said, for Brayton, I'm Ryan saying thanks for joining us. I don't know why I said saying thanks, but thank you for joining us. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Like I said, new stuff soon. It's almost time again for Sabres hockey. Please do me a favor and contain your excitement because I can just tell you are so excited for more Buffalo Sabres hockey. Thank you again for joining us, everyone. Have a good day, have a good night, have a good afternoon, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.